The millionaire hired 3 engineers, but the maid fixed the machine stuck for days. The millionaire hired 3 engineers, but the maid fixed the machine stuck for days. Welcome back to our channel, where real stories of resilience and unexpected heroes come to life. Before we dive into today's incredible tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss stories like this one. And please, tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Whether you're in New York, California, Texas, or anywhere else in the world, we love hearing from our amazing community. Now, get comfortable, because today's story will remind you that sometimes the most brilliant solutions come from the most unexpected places. This is the true story of how 3 highly paid engineers couldn't solve what a humble maid fixed in minutes. Chapter 1. The Breakdown. The harsh Seattle rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Harrison Tech Industries as CEO Marcus Harrison stood before the silent manufacturing line, his jaw clenched in frustration. The main production machine, a $2.3 million German-engineered marvel that was the heart of his semiconductor business, had been dead for 3 days. 3 days of lost production meant nearly $500,000 down the drain, and his biggest client was already making threatening calls about delayed shipments. "Sir, we've tried everything," said Tom Bradley, the lead maintenance supervisor, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. His 20 years of experience showed in the deep lines around his eyes, but today those lines seemed deeper, carved by stress and sleepless nights. "The diagnostic systems aren't picking up any specific errors, it just stopped." Marcus ran his fingers through his salt and pepper hair, a habit he'd developed during the countless crises that had built his empire from a small garage startup to a multi-million-dollar operation. At 52, he had weathered market crashes, hostile takeovers, and supply chain disasters, but this felt different. This machine was custom-built, irreplaceable, and absolutely critical. "What about the engineers from Munich? Are they still coming?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer would frustrate him further. Tom nodded grimly. "They'll be here tomorrow morning, but their initial consultation fee alone is $50,000, plus daily rates of $3,000 each, and there's no guarantee they can fix it remotely. They might need to ship replacement parts from Germany." The factory floor stretched out before them, usually bustling with activity, now eerily quiet, except for the distant hum of auxiliary systems. Workers stood in small groups, some playing cards, others scrolling through their phones, all of them aware that their jobs hung in the balance. The semiconductor industry was unforgiving. Miss one major delivery, and competitors would swoop in like vultures. Marcus watched Elena Vasquez move quietly between the idle workstations, emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces with methodical precision. She had been the night cleaning supervisor for almost 8 years, arriving every evening at 6 p.m. sharp and leaving by dawn, invisible to most of the day shift management, but essential to the operation's cleanliness standards. Her small frame moved efficiently through the maze of machinery, and Marcus noticed she seemed particularly focused around the dead production line. "Tom, what's our absolute deadline with Brennan Electronics?" Marcus asked, referring to their largest client. "End of business Friday, or they're pulling the contract and sourcing elsewhere. That's," Tom calculated quickly, 4 days, including today. The weight of the situation pressed down on Marcus's shoulders like a lead blanket. Brennan Electronics represented 30% of their revenue. Losing them wouldn't just mean missed quarterly targets. It could mean layoffs, downsizing, possibly even bankruptcy if other clients lost confidence and jumped ship. As if summoned by his darkest thoughts, his phone buzzed with a text from CFO Sarah Chen. "Brennan's CEO just called. They're exploring alternative suppliers, effective immediately. We need solutions now." Marcus closed his eyes and took a deep breath, tasting the metallic tang of recycled factory air mixed with cleaning chemicals. When he opened them, he saw Elena still working near the machine, but something about her movements caught his attention. She wasn't just cleaning, she was observing, studying the silent equipment with the same intensity he'd seen in his best engineers. "Tom, get me a complete timeline of everything that happened before the breakdown. Every maintenance check, every operational change, every person who touched that machine in the week leading up to the failure, and get me those German engineers on a video call. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." As Tom hurried away, Marcus remained on the factory floor, watching the rain streak down the windows and feeling the enormous weight of responsibility for his 200 employees. Somewhere in this building was the answer to their crisis, but finding it felt like searching for a needle in a haystack made of needles. Chapter 2. The experts arrive. The next morning brought no relief from the persistent Seattle drizzle, and Marcus arrived at the factory to find 3 stern-faced German engineers in identical navy blazers examining the silent production line with the gravity of surgeons preparing for a complex operation. Klaus Weber, the lead engineer, was a tall man with wire-rimmed glasses and an air of Teutonic precision that matched his reputation as one of Europe's foremost experts in automated manufacturing systems. "Herr Harrison," Klaus said, his English heavily accented but precise, "we have conducted preliminary visual inspection. This is indeed most unusual situation. The machine shows no obvious signs of mechanical failure, electrical disruption, or software corruption." His 2 colleagues, Dieter and Hans, nodded in unison while consulting tablets loaded with diagnostic software that cost more than most people's annual salaries. They moved around the machine like investigators at a crime scene, occasionally muttering in rapid German and making notes with expensive fountain pens. Marcus felt his stomach tighten as he watched them work. Every hour they spent diagnosing was another hour of lost production, another step closer to losing Brennan Electronics forever. The factory workers had gathered at a respectful distance, some openly skeptical of these outsiders who had flown halfway around the world to fix what local experts couldn't. "How long do you estimate for a complete diagnostic?" Marcus asked, trying to keep the desperation out of his voice. "Minimum 2 days for full system analysis," Dieter replied, his bald head reflecting the harsh factory lights. "Possibly 3 if we need to disassemble major components. German engineering is precise, but precision requires time." 2 days. Marcus felt his chest constrict. That would leave them with at most 1 day to implement whatever solution they found, assuming they could find one at all. He watched his phone screen, dreading the inevitable call from Brennan Electronics that would signal the beginning of the end. By noon, the German team had set up what looked like a mobile laboratory around the machine. Laptops, oscilloscopes, thermal imaging cameras, and diagnostic tools that Marcus couldn't even identify filled 3 rolling carts. They worked in focused silence, occasionally breaking into rapid German discussions that sounded more like arguments than collaborations. Eleanor arrived for her shift early, as she always did, carrying her supplies in a worn canvas bag that had seen years of faithful service. She moved through the factory with practiced invisibility, but Marcus noticed her eyes kept drifting to the German engineers and their elaborate setup. "Senora Elena," Marcus called out, surprising himself. He rarely spoke directly to the cleaning staff, though he made it a point to know all their names, a practice his father had taught him years ago in the original garage workshop. She approached cautiously, her dark eyes wary but respectful. "Yes, Mr. Harrison, is something wrong with my work?" No, nothing like that," Marcus assured her quickly. He realized he had no idea what he wanted to say. "You've been here a long time. 8 years, right?" "Almost 80, yes, sir. I start in October 2016. Her English was careful but clear, shaped by years of night school classes she attended after her cleaning shifts ended. "You've seen this machine through a lot of changes, haven't you? Upgrades, modifications?" Eleanor nodded slowly, glancing toward the silent equipment that had been the centerpiece of her nightly routine for nearly a decade. "Yes, sir. I clean around her every night. She is usually so alive. Always humming, always working. Now she is like sleeping." Something in her tone made Marcus look at her more carefully. There was an intimacy in how she spoke about the machine, a familiarity that came from thousands of hours of proximity. She knew this equipment not as an engineer knew it, through schematics and specifications, but as someone who had watched it breathe, listened to its rhythms, noticed its moods. "Have you ever noticed anything unusual about it? Any patterns or behaviors that seemed different?" Elena hesitated, glancing toward the German engineers who were deep in consultation over a computer screen displaying incomprehensible data streams. I am just the cleaning lady, Mr. Harrison. I don't know about machines." But her eyes told a different story, There was intelligence there, careful observation, the kind of practical wisdom that came from years of paying attention to details others overlooked. The afternoon dragged on with mounting tension. Klaus and his team ran diagnostic after diagnostic, each test consuming precious hours and yielding nothing but frustrated German muttering. By 4 p.m., they had identified several minor maintenance issues: worn gaskets, slightly elevated temperatures in secondary circuits, minor calibration drifts in sensors, but nothing that would cause a complete system shutdown. Most puzzling, Klaus announced to Marcus and Tom during an impromptu briefing session, all primary systems show normal parameters. All safety protocols are functioning correctly. All power supplies are stable. Yet the machine refuses to initiate production sequences. So what's your next step? Marcus asked, though he feared the answer. Tomorrow we begin complete component isolation testing. We must eliminate every possibility, no matter how remote. German thoroughness, can you understand? Marcus understood all too well. German thoroughness was going to cost him his company. Tana Chapter 3. The Overlooked Solution. The third day dawned grey and hopeless, with Seattle's characteristic mist turning the factory's skylights into sheets of diffused gloom. Marcus hadn't slept more than 3 hours, spending the night staring at financial projections that grew darker with each passing hour. Brennan Electronics had officially given them until 5 p.m. Friday, tomorrow, to ship the first batch of semiconductors or face contract termination. The German engineers had arrived at dawn, apparently as frustrated as everyone else, but maintaining their methodical approach with Teutonic stubbornness. Klaus had informed Marcus that they were now considering the possibility of a fundamental software corruption that might require completely reinstalling the machine's operating system, a process that could take up to a week. A week? Marcus had nearly shouted. Klaus, I don't have a week. I don't have a day. Herr Harrison, precision cannot be rushed. Better to fix correctly than to create bigger problems, yes? But Marcus was past caring about creating bigger problems. The biggest problem was already staring him in the face: the death of Harrison Tech Industries. Around 2 p.m., as the German team began what Klaus called deep system architecture analysis, Marcus found himself walking the factory floor like a condemned man. The workers had given up any pretense of optimism. Some were already updating their resumes on their phones. Others were making quiet calls to friends at competing companies. The writing was on the wall in letters 10 feet tall. Elena appeared at his elbow so quietly he startled. "Mr. Harrison, may I speak with you privately?" Her tone was different today, less deferential, more urgent. Marcus followed her to a quiet corner near the loading dock, away from the elaborate German diagnostic operation. "Sir, I know I am just the cleaning lady," she began, then stopped and squared her shoulders. "No, that is not true. I am not just anything. I have watched this machine for 8 years. I know her sounds, her patterns, her personality." Marcus blinked, caught off guard by her sudden assertiveness. "As the night before she stopped working, I noticed something. Something small that maybe nobody else would see." Elena reached into her cleaning bag and pulled out a small notebook with worn covers. "I write things down. Problems I see, things that need fixing, patterns I notice. My supervisor, he says it is not my job, but I do it anyway." She opened the notebook, pages filled with neat handwriting in both English and Spanish, dates and observations spanning months. "Look here. Tuesday night, 3 days ago, before the morning when she wouldn't start, I noticed the vibration pattern was different in section C4. Vibration pattern." Marcus leaned closer, his engineer's mind suddenly engaged. "Yes. Usually, when I clean around the base, I can feel the machine's rhythm through the floor, like a heartbeat, you know. But Tuesday night, section C4 had a different rhythm, irregular, like como si tuviera hipo, like hiccups." Marcus felt a spark of something that might have been hope. "Show me exactly where." Elena led him to the machine, past the German engineers who were now deep into what appeared to be the electronic equivalent of open-heart surgery. She knelt beside a panel near the base of the machine, placing her hand flat against the metal housing. "Here, every night for 8 years, I feel the vibration here while I clean. Tuesday night, it was wrong. And Wednesday morning, she gestured toward the silent machine. Did you report this to anyone? Elena's face clouded. I told my supervisor Wednesday morning when I heard the machine was broken. He said I should stick to cleaning and leave the thinking to people who went to college. Marcus felt a flash of anger that had nothing to do with the machine failure. Elena, I need you to think carefully. This irregular vibration, had you ever noticed it before? She flipped through her notebook, her finger tracing entries. Yes, here, 6 months ago, just for one night, then it went back to normal, and here, 14 months ago, same thing. One night of irregular vibration, then normal for many months. But this time it didn't go back to normal. No, sir. This time, she stopped. Marcus stared at the panel Elena had indicated, his mind racing. In the elaborate diagnostic circus surrounding them, everyone had focused on the complex systems, the computer controls, the high-tech sensors. But what if the problem was simpler? What if it was mechanical, localized, something that wouldn't show up on sophisticated diagnostic equipment, but would be obvious to someone who spent 8 years listening to the machine's heartbeat? Elena, do you have any idea what might cause this kind of vibration problem in this location? She hesitated, then pointed to a series of bolts along the base of section C4. These bolts here, they hold the main support bracket. If they become loose, the whole section would vibrate differently. And if they become too loose? The support bracket could shift and jam the entire mechanism, Marcus finished, his pulse quickening. They both looked toward the German engineers, who were now debating the merits of completely replacing the central processing unit. Klaus was gesturing emphatically, while Dieter took notes on his tablet. Elena, Marcus said quietly, do you think you could check those bolts without disrupting their work? She smiled for the first time in days. Mr. Harrison, I have been invisible in this factory for 8 years. I can check anything. Chapter 4. The Simple Fix. Eleanor moved with the practiced stealth of someone who had spent years working around expensive machinery and temperamental engineers. She retrieved a small toolkit from her supply closet, not the sophisticated diagnostic equipment the Germans wielded, but basic tools she used for minor maintenance tasks during her cleaning rounds. Marcus watched from a distance, trying to appear casual while his heart hammered against his ribs. The German team was completely absorbed in their analysis. Klaus now on a video call with colleagues in Munich, while Dieter and Hans debated the finer points of software architecture with the intensity of theologians discussing scripture. Elena knelt beside section C4 with a simple wrench, her movements precise and economical. She tested the first bolt, snug, the second bolt, also tight. The third bolt turned easily in her hand, almost a full rotation before meeting resistance. She looked up at Marcus with eyes wide with discovery, then moved to the fourth bolt. It was even looser, spinning freely for nearly 2 complete turns. The fifth bolt was tight, but the sixth was loose enough that she could turn it with her fingers. Marcus approached slowly, crouching beside her. How loose should these bolts be? They should not move at all without significant force, Elena whispered back. These 3 bolts, they are holding maybe 10% of the load they should hold. The support bracket. She peered underneath the machine with a small flashlight. Yes, look here. Marcus squinted into the narrow space she indicated. The massive support bracket that held the main production assembly had indeed shifted, creating a gap where none should exist. It wasn't dramatic, maybe half an inch, but in a precision machine calibrated to tolerances measured in thousandths of inches, it might as well have been a canyon. This bracket supports the primary feed mechanism, Eleanor continued, her voice gaining confidence. If it shifts even small amount, the feed mechanism cannot align properly with the processing chamber. The machine's safety systems would detect the misalignment and shut everything down to prevent damage. Marcus felt a surge of excitement mixed with disbelief. Eleanor, how do you know all this? She sat back on her heels, suddenly looking embarrassed. I study at night, after my shift, before I go home. Seattle Community College has program for manufacturing technology. I take classes 3 nights per week for 4 years now. You're studying manufacturing technology? Yes, sir. I want to be more than cleaning lady. I want to understand the machines I work around every day. My professor, he says I have good instincts for mechanical systems." Marcus stared at her, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. "Elena, how long would it take to tighten these bolts properly?" "Maybe 20 minutes. But—" She glanced nervously toward the German engineers. "The machine needs to be completely powered down and all safety locks engaged, and someone should verify the bracket alignment after the bolts are tightened." 20 minutes. Marcus looked at his watch. 3:40 p.m. Even if this worked, and it was a big if, they would still need time to test the machine, run quality checks, and begin production runs. But it was their only shot. "Elena, I need you to do something for me. I need you to fix this machine." Her eyes widened. "But Mr. Harrison, the German engineers..." "The German engineers have spent 2 days looking for complex problems. You found the actual problem in 20 minutes. I trust you." Elena stared at him for a long moment, then nodded with determination that reminded Marcus why he had built his business on taking calculated risks. "I will need someone to help with the safety procedures and to verify my work." Marcus turned toward the German engineering team, weighing his options. Klaus would undoubtedly object to suspending his diagnostic procedures to allow a cleaning lady to attempt repairs with basic tools. But Tom Bradley, the maintenance supervisor, might be different. "Tom," Marcus called quietly, "I need you over here." Tom approached, wiping his hands on the omnipresent rag. When Marcus explained Elena's discovery and theory, Tom's expression shifted from skepticism to growing excitement. "Jesus, that actually makes sense," Tom muttered, kneeling to examine the loose bolts himself. "I should have checked the support structure first thing. But we were also focused on the electronic systems. Can you help her do this safely?" Tom looked at Elena with new respect. "Ma'am, if you can diagnose mechanical problems this accurately, I'd be honored to assist with the repair." The next 20 minutes passed like a carefully choreographed dance. Tom initiated the complete shutdown procedures, while Elena organized her tools with the precision of a surgeon preparing for operation. The German engineers, absorbed in their remote consultations and data analysis, barely noticed the activity at the base of the machine. Working methodically, Elena and Tom realigned the support bracket and tightened each bolt to specification. Elena's small hands were perfect for accessing tight spaces, while Tom's experience ensured every safety protocol was followed to the letter. "Okay," Tom said finally, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cool factory air. "Moment of truth. Elena, you want to do the honors?" Elena looked at Marcus, who nodded encouragingly. With steady hands, she initiated the startup sequence she had watched hundreds of times but never performed herself. The machine hummed to life. Chapter 5. Recognition and Redemption. The sound was beautiful. The deep, rhythmic hum of precision machinery, operating exactly as designed. Marcus felt his knees go weak with relief as indicator lights began their familiar sequence across the control panel. The German engineers stopped their intense discussion and turned toward the machine with expressions of bewilderment. "Was ist das?" Klaus demanded, striding toward the now operational production line. "How is this possible? We did not complete our diagnostics." Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between Klaus and Elena, who was quietly gathering her simple tools. "The problem has been identified and resolved. Impossible. We have been conducting comprehensive system analysis for 2 days. You cannot simply—" "Klaus," Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying the authority that had built his company from nothing. "The machine is running. Our production schedule can be salvaged. Your services are no longer required." The 3 German engineers exchanged rapid, heated words in their native language. Klaus's face reddened as he realized that his expensive, sophisticated analysis had been bypassed by what appeared to be basic maintenance. "Herr Harrison, this is most irregular. You cannot trust such expensive equipment to—" He gestured dismissively toward Eleanor. "To someone who actually understood the problem?" Marcus's voice carried an edge that made several nearby workers turn to watch. "Klaus, you and your team are brilliant engineers, but you spent 2 days looking for complex solutions to what turned out to be a simple mechanical issue. Sometimes experience and observation matter more than advanced degrees." Tom Bradley stepped up beside Eleanor, his weathered face split by a grin. Sir, I've been working on machinery for 20 years, and I've never seen diagnostic skills like this. Eleanor identified the exact problem and location based on vibration patterns she felt through the floor while cleaning. The factory floor had gone quiet, except for the sweet sound of the production machine cycling through its startup procedures. Workers began gathering around, drawn by the hope in Tom's voice and the sight of their salvation humming back to life. "Eleanor," Marcus said, turning to face her fully, "I owe you an enormous apology. You tried to report this problem 3 days ago, and your supervisor dismissed you. That failure is on me, because I created a culture where insights from cleaning staff weren't valued." Elena shifted uncomfortably under the attention of dozens of co-workers and 3 bewildered German engineers. "Mr. Harrison, I just want to do my job well." "And you do. Better than anyone realized." Marcus paused, making a decision that felt as right as anything he'd ever done. "Elena, I'd like to offer you a new position, Tom. We're going to need a new assistant maintenance supervisor, someone with exceptional diagnostic skills and intimate knowledge of our equipment. Are you interested in training someone who clearly has the instincts for the work?" Tom's grin widened. "Sir, I'd be honored to work with someone this sharp." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. "But Mr. Harrison, I don't have engineering degree. I am still learning." "Eleanor, you just saved my company. You saved 200 jobs. You did what 3 expert engineers with advanced degrees couldn't do, using tools that cost less than their hourly consultation fee." Marcus's voice softened. Sometimes the most valuable expertise comes from years of careful observation and genuine care about the work. You have both. The German engineers were packing their equipment with wounded dignity. Klaus approached Marcus one final time, his professional pride clearly stung. "Herr Harrison, you understand that this simple repair, it could have been identified in our systematic analysis. Given sufficient time—" "Klaus, you're absolutely right. Given sufficient time, you would have found this problem. But we didn't have sufficient time. We had a crisis that required someone who knew this specific machine intimately. Someone who had spent years listening to its rhythms and caring about its health. That person wasn't you. It was Elena." As the German team departed, muttering among themselves, the production line completed its startup sequence and began processing the first batch of semiconductors Harrison Tech had produced in 4 days. The familiar sounds of operation, conveyor belts moving, pneumatic systems cycling, quality sensors beeping, filled the factory like a symphony. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. "Brennan just called. They heard our line is back up. Still want to maintain the contract if we can deliver by end of week. How did you pull this off?" Marcus looked around the factory floor, where workers were returning to their stations with renewed energy, where Tom was already discussing maintenance schedules with Elena, where the crisis that had threatened to destroy everything was now just a memory. "Eleanor," he called out, "before you start your new position, I have one more question. In your notebook there, do you have observations about any of our other machines?" She clutched the worn notebook, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Yes, Mr. Harrison, I have many observations. 8 years of observations." Marcus smiled back, feeling lighter than he had in months. "Then I think we need to have a very long conversation about preventive maintenance. And Elena, thank you. You didn't just fix a machine today. You saved everything we've built here." As the factory returned to full production and the Seattle rain continued its eternal dance against the windows, Marcus reflected on the lesson that had nearly cost him everything. Sometimes the most profound expertise comes not from advanced degrees or expensive consultants, but from the quiet wisdom of someone who has spent years truly paying attention. Elena Vasquez, former night cleaning supervisor, current assistant maintenance supervisor, and future guardian of Harrison Tech's mechanical soul, returned to her rounds with her notebook and her tools. But now she moved with the recognition she had always deserved, and the knowledge that careful observation and genuine care were among the most valuable skills in any organization. The machine hummed on, steady and strong, its heartbeat once again familiar to the woman who had never stopped listening. The end. Thank you for joining us for this incredible story of recognition, humility, and the power of careful observation. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales, and let us know in the comments what lessons you took away from Elena's journey. Sometimes the most extraordinary solutions come from the most ordinary places. We just need to be willing to listen.